Welcome back to 5-Minute Photo. And in this episode, let's get raw. Hello and welcome to 5-Minute Photo. I'm Bill Ferris. In this episode, I'd like to talk with you about the importance of shooting in RAW. And as a framework for this conversation, what I'd like to do is show you a recent photograph I took from an event shoot that I did. And so we'll use that photograph to illustrate the bottom line benefits of shooting in RAW for all your photography. Let's get into Lightroom and have a look. So this is a photograph from a recent event shoot that I did. At the end of the event, the client wanted me to get a group shot of all the honorees and the people who presented them. And so this is the final image from that shot. But let's do a comparison of the before and after. So on the left is the before image, on the right, the after. Clearly you can see on the left it's overexposed. So let's talk about how I was able to get from this original significantly overexposed raw image to the final image. So we'll go back to the original raw exposure and we'll just create a little more space to take a better look at that image and get into our Lightroom editing tools in the develop module. So you can see that the image is overexposed by at least a stop. And let me just share that before I took the image, I did take test exposures. However, I didn't do a very good job of checking those or of adjusting the settings on my camera to ensure that I would be closer to a proper exposure when I made this final image. That's on me. That's my mistake. I own up to it. I take responsibility for it. However, because I shoot in RAW, well, RAW is what I consider to be my first and last insurance policy. It's a first insurance policy because it's one of the first decisions that I make as a photographer. Do I shoot in RAW or do I shoot in JPEG? I shoot in RAW. The reason being this: making a RAW image, you're recording much more information about that photograph, which allows you to work in your image processing software of choice. I use Adobe Lightroom, and to recover details that are lost due to over or under exposure. And this photograph will illustrate that nicely. We'll begin developing by scrolling down to the bottom of that develop module. I'm going to enable profile corrections and remove chromatic aberrations. These are default steps that I do with just about every image. And we'll scroll back up. And I'm going to begin by adjusting our exposure. I'm going to bring that down to recover information in the phases, so we're at about 9/10 of a stop right there. I'm also going to bring down the highlights, try to recover some detail in the sky, and I'm at about 90 on the highlights. We can see that one of the other mistakes that I made was I used 2 speed lights. That wasn't a mistake, but I used 2 speed lights to illuminate the faces of the people in this group photo. The sun is from behind and to their right, as you can see by the shadows on the terrace floor. But there are 3 people where shadows are falling and blocking clear views of their faces. This woman right here, the gentleman here, and the woman right here. But we can try to recover some of the detail in the shadows by making a shadow adjustment. And we'll bring that back to about 30. And I'm going to adjust the exposure again, bring the exposure down just a wee bit more, not quite that much, but we're at about a stop and a 1/10 down. Finally, we'll do a crop. I'm going to go into a custom crop and unlock it. I just want to bring up the bottom of the frame. I think we can crop the top of the frame as well just a wee bit and bring in from the side, try to even out the side right there. We'll hit enter, we'll accept this adjustment. And so here's the final quickly adjusted photograph. This took just a couple of minutes, primarily using the exposure adjustment tool and the highlights adjustment tool. Was able to recover a lot of the detail that was lost in that original overexposed image. And so we'll go back to our before and after comparison tool, and again we can see on the left the original overexposed raw image, and on the right the final image. And again, what this illustrates is the benefit of shooting in RAW. If I had been shooting in JPEG, there's no way I would have been able to make that kind of significant adjustment in exposure setting or highlight adjustment, perhaps even shadow adjustment, in my effort to recover details without having areas of the photograph that were just either flat black or flat white. In this case, probably flat white without any detail at all. Shooting in RAW records enough information about that image to allow you to make these kind of adjustments to compensate for mistakes that you might make in the field. A mistake that I made in the field by not getting a proper exposure. Again, that was my fault, but because I shoot in RAW, it gave me that one last insurance policy, an opportunity to recover detail from an image that was properly framed that serves my client. And so there you have it. Another argument in favor of shooting RAW for all your photography. Thank you for watching. I'm Bill Ferris, and I will see you next time on 5 Minute Photo.